All right, so I got about a half an hour today to kind of deal with kind of the same flow I think I was doing the last couple streams, which was the first one I did was just kind of looking at this eShop on web uh, kind of sample app that's in the .NET architecture repo. So I forked that, and I was just kind of perusing it, looking at something I could refactor, which ended up being the first stream was just kind of looking at it to realize, okay, that we can take out the repository that's being used in the query. And then ultimately, my second stream was that actual refactor. So I think today what I'm going to do is kind of follow that kind of mode where I'm going to do one stream here that I'll try to keep fairly short to a half an hour. Feels like a good length of time. That I am going to just look at the code and think of something that looks interesting to refactor, and then the second stream that I do will actually be that refactor. So that is the plan for this one. So again, this is eShop on web. This is my fork of it that has my changes from the last time. And on the last stream, I also got feedback from in the comments from Adam saying the font's small for reading, and I get that. I was constantly trying to adjust font size of everything I opened. So what I did in Rider is I just increased the font size of everything. So in the editor as well as like navigation, the Explorer and everything. So hopefully I don't have to constantly increase the font size. So I think I'm running at like 26 right now. So we'll see how that works out in terms of if that works. Let me know in the YouTube comments or on Twitter or whatever the case may be. So this was my refactor from last time, was moving this particular, or not moving it, but changing this handler to use the database context directly. And then the second piece of that was kind of moving everything into this single file. So that was kind of in the past. So now what I want to do, like I said, is just kind of look at it and me really just be talking out loud for the most part about things I'm noticing or that I'd be worthwhile to kind of demonstrate. Again, the stuff I'm doing in here isn't necessarily that you should do these things. It's just kind of demonstrating them, just different ways of doing things, like it was with the order handler. You could have the arguments of right or wrong or whether it fits this particular sample application. Again, the purpose of this is kind of to demo it. Some of it may not be applicable to this demo applications, but hopefully I can explain it well enough that, or the reasons why, and then you can determine that on your own in your own apps. So the one idea that I did have ahead of time was related to if there was anything in this app that didn't need to be in line or in process. So, for example, I really don't know this app well enough, but looking for something that maybe, let's say, like it's eShop on web. So if you were if you're completing an order, I know the eShop on containers, which is a separate project, it had a lot of this where, and that was kind of their microservice example app. And for example, if you were to place an order, there were kind of multiple things that happened separately, kind of in the background. And that's kind of what I'm looking for, I guess, in this one is things that don't need to be happening via the actual HTTP request, meaning that user clicks on something, let's say it's completing an order, placing their order, and there's a bunch of stuff that happens before the HTTP response comes back saying, hey, you're good, or it redirects, whatever the heck it does. Maybe it's like the simple things like sending an email or processing a payment or whatever the case may be that the user doesn't need to wait for. Sending an email is actually the most obvious one, generally, is an easy way to think of it. So maybe I'll use that as the example here. Let's see if I can find something to do with emailing. So this was for the order details. This manage controller was who knows what. I will say that if you can see these, so this was already done in this project, this features folder of my orders and order details. I would much prefer having names mean something rather than like what I'm doing right now is what the heck is manage, like a manage controller. Like looking at this just via the solution explorer, I have no idea what the heck this is. Well, here's an email sender. What is this related to? Users? Because it's user manager, sign-in manager, everything manager. So this is the manager controller, manage controller of users. So my account, okay, yeah, so this is user related stuff. But it does have a useful, it is using this email sender, which is also a little bit weird of a name, in my opinion. So what does this thing actually do? So this is kind of just doing nothing for the demo. It's not actually wiring up anything. Again, it's a sample, so that makes sense. So this is actually probably a good one about in this manage controller, we are, where are we using this? We're not using it. Really? I thought I just seen it. Send verification email. Right here. And this is an extension method. Why can I go to it? Where is it at? It's in. Let's build. Something's weird going on here. There's a test because we changed this one, right? This one is using the actual that's actually an interesting example here. We could on another stream I will totally do this, which is related to some of these tests. Some of these tests probably have a in-memory database. I'm going to guess they're using, because the database in general we're using is in memory. Let's see. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole I wasn't going in here. So, anyways, generate. Where was it? Email. Send email. Why does this not exist? Here's the method anyways. Okay, so this was just using the extension. This is just an extension method on email sender to specify the email and then this generic message we're sending out. And again, that one was done in the send verification email. So a good question is, why the heck does this get sent? That seemed really weird. Send verification. Is this like to sign up? No, because you got an existing user. You're already signed in at that point. I don't even know what this is used for. Let's run it. All right, let's log in. Should make this bigger. There we go. Close it. Was it for this? No. Password. Where was this even used for? Send verification. My account. This one right here. Oh, maybe if you create your account, when you create your account, it sends one, and then this is a separate way to do it. That's probably what this is. So this link submits the form to a post to do it. I see. Okay, right here. Okay, so the question I guess we can use in this example, let me hide some of this stuff, is all of this code needed to do this? So all of this code, for the most part, is our code. The rest of it is kind of framework code. So validating kind of the model, and then, yeah, like all the rest of this stuff is our stuff. So the question would be, does the user, does this need to succeed for the user to be redirected back to the index page? Arguably, the case for email is no. Now, I say that because if you're sending the email, just like we were looking in the email sender here, is wire this up to actually send the email to whatever. I mean, SendGrid, local SMTP. I could use probably AWS SES for an example with this probably. And if it fails to send, do we want to tell the user that the whole thing bombed? Or would we rather have mechanisms like retries built in, which you could do in process with something like Polly. So Polly is I'll go into it over here. Let's go to NuGet. So when I'm talking about Polly, I'm referring to this library, which has a ton of stuff, one of them being retries and kind of like backoffs, etc. So if you were trying to use, for example, whatever SDK or SMTP, whatever the case may be, you're trying to send this email and the server you're trying to send it to is failing, you could automatically retry with Polly. But again, that is all done within process, meaning that when the HTTP request comes in and goes here, we're not going to return anything back to the user or to their browser until that actually succeeds or fails miserably, and we tell the user, hey, this didn't work. An alternative to that is getting all of this out of process. So having the HTTP request come in, us build a type of job to do this work. That can happen separately offline. Not offline, but like in a separate process or in a background thread. And then ultimately we just enqueue this work, and then we return back to the user saying, hey, you should get your email in a short while, verification email in a short while. The benefit to that is if you're doing this work in the background, there's a lot of tools, libraries that you can use that will give you the retries, putting stuff like fetching, pulling them out of the queue, doing all the heavy lifting for you for free, essentially. I wouldn't say for free, but it's all kind of built in. So I think what my big-ish or my next stream refactor is, I'll decide on what I want to use to run kind of these background jobs. And it's going to be twofold to that is just like I did the refactor for the order details query, this will be the equivalent of a separate command that we want to enqueue somewhere that we're just going to provide it the details for this request. And then we'll enqueue and do that work, like this work, in a separate process or a background thread, potentially even just in this app itself. So if you have any, I have a bunch of ideas in my mind what I could use. If you have any suggestions, let me know on Twitter or in the comments of this video of what you'd like to see me use. Probably the most viewed video I have on my YouTube channel, don't quote me on this, I think it's one of the highest one, is related to Hangfire and using Hangfire for this type of work. And if I did that, I would probably go down more of a particular series with Hangfire, because I have a lot of different ways that you can use Hangfire that you probably not have seen in their examples or on their site or even in my video. Another option would be to use anything in Azure related to queues, or RabbitMQ, or we could use something like AWS's SES or SNS, or a combination of the two. I'm trying to think what else we could use. Yeah, if you have a suggestion of what you'd like to see, we could use, as well as we could use Brighter Command, which I could hook up to something as well. I'm trying to think, there's so many things that we get. Mass Transit, we could do this. I'm trying to think of something simple, light though, to begin with. Although Brighter is probably actually easy to wire up. So yeah, if you have comments, let me know. But that's the plan, is that. So if I do something with, for example, with Hangfire, I can turn it into a little bit of a series. So that one's kind of at the top of my list right now, but there's nothing really stopping me from, I guess, showing different implementations of how that would work. So that is what I will do on the next stream, is turn these into actual commands that we can run in a separate process or in a background thread. So there's that one. Let's see if there's any other stuff in here besides email that we could do this with as an example. Let's see. So there's that one. I doubt there's anything meaningful in here. No. We already looked at features. Oh, there's a whole admin section here. Okay, so this is catalog, basket, we could probably just make one up too, related to once you actually like create this. This one's actually probably pretty good, decent example too. We could I could probably take something like this, create order. Let's jump in here. None of the navigation's working. What is going on? So that one is taking our basket, basically getting the basket, iterating over the items, and then creating a new order with that. So we could do something as well as kind of like the confirmation email, or to either end about the order being created. So I don't necessarily need something that's kind of already in place. We can kind of extend this and add this to it. So what we would do in this particular case is, upon checkout and creating our order, we would emit an event about that order being created. And then subsequently from that, we can handle that event to do numerous things. One of them could be emailing whoever created the order, and we could do something like maybe, I don't know if there's anything. I see quantities in here. That's for the basket though. I'm curious if there's anything to do with this catalog and keeping track of quantities on the catalog itself. What's a catalog model look like? Catalog item. Yeah, we could always add something like the quantity on here, which is totally made up, but it wouldn't work like that in real life. But for the sake of example, we could probably add something like a quantity and deal with reducing that when an order is placed, and that could be handled via an event. or actually even probably the reverse, potentially maybe the number of times an item has been ordered. And we could probably show that in the UI to show how popular products are. That would work too. And all that would happen after actually placing the order. So yeah, that'd be twofold. We'd have using the background, some type of worker to send an email via a particular action like a command. And then we can do on the flip side is have two different handlers for events that are occurring. The event in question could be that the order was placed. And then, like I said, we could send an email out to the user that placed the order, as well as maybe doing something like with the catalog item of showing how many, or incrementing how many times it's been ordered, that particular product. All right, that's the road I think I'm going to go down with this one. So again, if you have comments, let me know on Twitter or on in the YouTube comments. If you have any particular thoughts about what library or service I should use for this, like I said, in something in Azure or in AWS, or entirely different, something like just a library itself, like Brighter with its whatever backing it will use, or same thing with Hangfire. You could use just, I think the default one uses SQL Server, so I could use like LocalDB or something, or SQL Express. All right, that's the plan for this one. So I don't know exactly when I'll stream this again, so maybe this week. I will post on Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter if you don't already at CodeOpinion. And I'll also try to post in my YouTube kind of community about when upcoming ones are happening. All right, take it easy. I think that is it for now. See you next stream, I guess.